watching the award-winning GHS TV, a nationally recognized student television station.
Hello and welcome to GHS TV's award-winning talk show, Crosstalk. I'm Cris Peña, and today we're diving into a crucial topic, the role of education in politics, and how it's approached at both the high school and university levels. With elections approaching, it's important to understand how the education system helps shape informed voters, from learning about civic responsibilities in high school to engaging with political discourse at the university level. Education plays a key role in preparing young people to participate in our democracy. However, only 51% of voters aged 18 to 24 participated in the 2020 election, compared to the 76% of voters aged 65 to 74. Why is there such a huge gap? And how can schools and universities better prepare students to engage in the electoral process? To explore these questions, we're joined by two experts, Kimberly Thorpe, a U.S. government teacher, and Ebony Dawkins, a professor at the University of Memphis. Together, we'll discuss how political education differs at the high school and university levels, and what can be done to encourage greater civic participation among young people. So let's get started and let's talk about it. So, thank you guys so much for coming on to the show.
Thank you, Cris, for having us.
Ms. Thorpe, I'd like to start with you.
Sure.
Since in today's day, most young people don't really care much about politics in this country, how well do your students understand the key issues that both political parties bring? And additionally, how do you help them understand the real life impact they have on society?
Well, Cris, I think you would be pleasantly surprised to know with this upcoming election, there is a lot more interest in the younger generation. I think they've heard what's happening in their household and their parents talking about the importance of this election and the impact that it's going to have on America as we move forward. And, my key role is having the kids come into class and actually helping them understand the role of government, how it works, and how it's so important it is for them to participate in order for our democracy to continue to succeed.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And for you, Professor Dawkins, at a university level, do your students come in with a solid understanding of, both political parties and the issues they advocate for? And if not, do you provide them with the kind of foundational knowledge?
I think that students come in with their own unique understandings of the various political parties that exist in our system. That could be from what they've learned in school. It could also be from what they've learned at home or their own personal experiences. In the university classroom, what we're doing is not only teaching about what the political parties are and what they stand for, but we're also teaching our students about how political parties operate to influence the electoral process. We're teaching them about fringe electoral parties in our society, and most importantly, we're teaching students about the democratic process. So whatever their party affiliation is, they will have a knowledge of how our process works in the U.S.
Mm-hmm. Ms. Thorpe, I'll go back to you.
Huh?
Given the massive difference in teaching politics at a high school and university level, what methods do you use in teaching your students to kind of understand both political parties and what they stand for in terms of climate change, education, and even healthcare?
Well, I think first we have to start with the individual themselves. They have to understand what their ideology is and what they actually believe. And so I do activities like have them do a survey on isidewith.com so they can kind of understand, where they fall on the political spectrum and the things that they find the most important to them. And then once we do that, we talk about those different issues and how, and what that means in terms of public policy and how that's going to impact, their adulthood, because the decisions that are made in this current election process are going to be the decisions that impact their young adulthood and their growing families as they get older.
Professor Dawkins, how do you teach students to analyze the broader implications of both political party platforms and their potential long-term effects on society?
Well, the really cool thing about studying political science, government at the university level, is that you get a more in-depth study. And so classes are divided in such a way that you could spend an entire semester just talking about political parties, or you could spend an entire semester talking about the organization of U.S. government. So, for example, this semester I'm teaching a constitutional law class on national powers, and what we're doing in that class is really focusing on key Supreme Court cases that have helped us to get a deeper understanding of what our government is, how our government is meant to operate, and looking at the impacts it has on not only the people in the cases, but also on future generations of Americans. So it's really about just a deeper study, a more intense study, and allowing ourselves to really engage in nuance.
And Ms. Thorpe, do you ever find your students ever favor one political side over the other? And if so, do you kind of teach them about the other political side to, I guess, before forming their opinion?
Well, I mean, everyone's going to come in with their own bias because, of course, especially being young, coming out of your family, you're going to bring with you the political ideology and the conversations that you hear in your household, and you know that that's going to be your core values and beliefs. And so with that, I try to work with my students and force them to look at issues from the other side. So, and those are the activities. I have them run, be an advocate for the opposite perspective of what it is that they feel like they automatically believe in and what they support.
Harris says her economic policy is based on creating opportunities for the middle class. The Biden-Harris administration has focused on making public investments in infrastructure and green energy, challenging monopolistic consolidation, and raising taxes on corporations and the wealthiest Americans to pay for a surge in spending.
As former President Trump emphasized tax cuts and deregulatory economic policies, which he says spurred growth, innovation, and employment. He says government spending needs massive cuts to bring down inflation. Specific policy proposals are further lowering the corporate tax rate to 15% for firms that make the goods in the United States and eliminating taxes on tips and Social Security benefits.
Professor Dawkins, for you, how do you guide students to think more open-mindedly and think critically about opposing viewpoints?
Oh, wow, that's a really great question, Christopher. One of the rules that I have in my classroom is that we engage in our study of politics and the political process as scholars as opposed to political partisans. When we engage as scholars, as people who are interested in learning about what U.S. government is, how U.S. government operates, it opens up the door for us to be honest about what it is that we're learning. And we might find that there are things about an opposing political ideology that we agree with, and we might find that there are things in our own professed political ideology that we have more questions about. And so it's really about leaning into the idea that we are scholars and we're engaged in a particular process to learn and to investigate as much as we can.
I think I might borrow that. I like it.
Yeah. And Ms. Thorpe, for you, how do you help students distinguish between the difference between party rhetoric and actual party proposals from parties, and to help ensure that they're getting the most accurate information?
Well, in some of my classes, we did an activity called just doing an investigation into culture wars. And so we took a look at the headlines and the things that were being pushed out there in the media, in the biased media, and the perspective that was being taken from the different media sources. And so that's how we kind of introduced the idea of rhetoric. And then we bring the policies out there. We go to the candidates' websites and we take a look at what their official statements are about the individual the individual policies that we're talking about. So we do a little bit of both. We look at the media sources to pull out the stories, and then we go to the mouth of the candidates themselves to see what they really stand for.
That sounds really cool.
So, Professor Dawkins, I'm going to ask you something similar to what I asked Ms. Thorpe. What challenges do you face in, addressing misinformation and preconceived biases students bring to your class?
Man, that's a really good question. The one important thing that we do is really think about the history of disinformation and how it has appeared not only in our current era, but how it has shown up across the world throughout time, to look at not only how disinformation is propagated, but to also look at what's the impact that it has on public opinion, what's the impact that it has on voting behaviors, how is it that sometimes people make choices in their voting or in their political beliefs that seem to kind of be the opposite of what might actually benefit them. We also right now are looking at the role of artificial intelligence in the creation of misinformation in our modern era, looking at how that's impacting our understanding of what's being said, our belief about whether or not we can trust what's being said, and how even just the question of trust is a symptom of democratic erosion. And so now we began to really think about what are ways that we can combat that. What are the tools that we can utilize if they already exist, or if we need to come up with new ones to begin to think about how do we protect our democracy.
Mm-hmm. Well, guys, unfortunately, we've run out of time. I'm sure you guys would have loved to talk more, but
we would.
Absolutely, yeah.
I want to hear about artificial intelligence.
Thank you so much for coming on to the show, Ms. Thorpe, and as well, Professor Dawkins.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
We've heard our experts' point of view. Up next, we'll bring in our peer panel to get their take on the topic. Welcome back to Crosstalk. We've just heard from our experts, and now it's time to directly hear from our student panel. Today, we are joined by two students from the government class to share their thoughts on the role of education in politics and to add their perspectives to our earlier discussion. Please welcome Shontario Jones and Aaron Johnson. Thank you guys so much for coming on to the show.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, first I want to start with you, Shontario. Since, I guess, both of you are from the government class,
Yes.
how do you feel the curriculum, I guess, gives you an understanding about government as a whole?
Well, I take an AP course, so it's advanced placement. So basically, it's sort of like a college course. So as for an advanced level compared to college, it gets us ready for government and politics. So basically, it's very intelligent. So for our course,
I see it. And for you, Aaron, as well?
I would say it goes more in depth about things more than like Democrats and Republicans, because I know that like we're used to that, but it tells about the House, the Senate, the representatives, and stuff like that, and it's really like, it's really telling.
And I mean, do you guys see any gaps in this? Do you see any gaps in that curriculum?
I don't. I think Miss KT does her best.
Miss
with
Casey
what
does
she
that.
has.
Yeah, she does an awesome job at that.
I mean, I've never taken her before, but I think I'm taking her this year, right? I think that's how it works now.
Yeah.
But why do you think this generation is so ignorant about the House and the Senate? Because personally, my teacher, Mr. Mazur, himself asked us personally what the House and the Senate does. I'm be completely honest. I couldn't answer. So why do you guys think that?
Well, basically, it's sort of like an age gap. So you have 50% of the population are older people. Back in 1950s, they went through something like the Great Depression, and there were like economic instability. So basically, they have a different viewpoint on our political and government standpoints. So that's why most of the population votes, like the voters are older than the younger. So when it comes to us being in high school and like early college, we don't have that much knowledge and experience as they did back then. So our viewpoints are kind of different when it comes to voting.
I agree with him. I feel like as someone who can be kind of ignorant, like concerning things like that, I think it's nothing that I really had to worry about since I've been like with my parents and they handle things like that. So it hasn't really like came to me like, oh, I should be thinking about who to vote for like a better society.
And I know we hear about that slogan, every vote counts. But I mean, what does it really mean?
Well, that slogan, it's kind of like a misconception though a little bit. But when it says every vote counts, it's saying like in particular some votes. We have people that are uneducated, and when it turns to voting the polls and stuff, Kamala and Trump one vote can make a substantial difference in voting. So sometimes it's good to know, and sometimes it's good to not know that voting.
I think people say that to get everybody to vote, really. I think it's like a good marketing strategy, like, oh, your voice matters.
Yeah.
And I guess on the topic of marketing strategies, I know you're SGA president. So, I mean, kind of tell us what you did to become that.
Okay, well, I think what really like sold it was I had a great slogan. I did like the Barack Obama campaign, and it was really funny, and it got a lot of attention. And then I did a lot of campaigning with different people and, you know, different backgrounds and stuff like that. And I think that's really what got people's attention was the campaign thing. It was like USA themed, you know. People were feeling really independent that day. Yeah.
And Shantari, I know you said something about miseducation on how voters are. What do you think we can do to kind of let people know more about how important voting is?
Well, that just stands for in high school curriculum. Like there are some courses where they're just standard. I think we should give everybody an opportunity to like advanced placement, because once they get out into the real world, you don't know what they come into. So like them being educated in the government and what it could provide for us in the future is very like proficient into what we're learning. So I think everybody should be given that opportunity in high school and not just standard classes.
Well, guys, that's all the time we have. Thank you guys so much for coming on to the show, really.
Thank you.
It has been such an interesting conversation with politics. As we wrap up today's episode of Crosstalk, we've explored the critical role that education plays in shaping political awareness and involvement. It's clear that education is key to fostering informed and active citizens. We hope that through these discussions, more young people will feel empowered to participate in the political life of their country, realizing that their voices truly do matter. Thank you to our guests, Kimberly Thorpe and Ebony Dawkins, and to our student panel, Shontario Jones and Aaron Johnson. And of course, thank you for watching. For more information, you can visit us online where we will be streaming 24/7. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. For the latest updates, we value everyone who watches our content and subscribe to our channel. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications to stay informed. Let's keep the conversation going, because the future of democracy is in your hands. For more information on our programming, please check us out on the web ghstv.org, where we are streaming live 24 hours a day. You can also check us out on Facebook and Instagram. I'm Cris Peña, and from all of us at GHS TV, thank you for watching Crosstalk, and I hope to see you again.